children, welcome back to the class. In the previous class, we have seen different types of asexual reproductions in lower organisms and in plants, vegetative reproduction and also vegetative propagation. And also we came to know about the importance of sexual reproduction. Why plants prefer sexual reproduction than to asexual reproduction? Because of genetic exchange between the gametes. So, with all these things we have studied in the previous class. Now we shall see sexual reproduction in plants. How sexual reproduction takes place in plants. So, in plants there are two systems, root system and the shoot system. And in the same way, different types of buds are present. That means vegetative buds which will develop into leaves, vegetative parts of the plant. And the reproductive buds means which will develop into flowers. So flowers are the reproductive part of the plant, which takes place which takes part in sexual reproduction. So now let us see the structure of a flower, a typical flower. So actually the flowers have male reproductive system and female reproductive system, which we are going to study. And first of all, if you see the structure of flower, the stalk of the flower is called pedicel. And if the flower doesn't have stalk or pedicel, it is called as a sessile. So the flower without a stalk is called sessile. So the stalk of the flower in the upper part is a little bit swollen. So this swollen part is called as thalamus, which is called as thalamus. Thalamus is the swollen part of the pedicel, upper part of the pedicel, which is called as thalamus. On the thalamus, the floral parts are arranged in whorls. They are arranged in whorls, means circles. So the flower parts are arranged in whorls. So the outermost whorl is called as calyx. Calyx is commonly known as sepals. So they are called as sepals. So sepals, what is the function of sepals? Sepals, they are usually green in color and they protect the inner parts of the flower during bud condition. So when the flower is in bud condition, these calyx, sepals, they protect the inner parts of the flower. That is the function of calyx. Next whorl is called corolla. Corolla is commonly called as petals. So these petals have very important function to attract the insects for pollination. So they, with their attractive colors, bright colors, they attract the insects which help in the process of cross-pollination. And so if in addition to this, these petals, they will have some aromatic cells with their aroma, that means good smell, they attract the insects. So the insects help in the process of pollination. What is pollination? Pollination is a transfer of pollen grains from one part of the flower to the other part, other flower. So if the transfer of the pollen grains takes place between the same flower, that means if the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the same flower, it is called as a self-pollination. If the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the other flower of the same species, then it is called cross-pollination. So here the flowers usually avoid self-pollination by different methods and they prefer cross-pollination. That means there is more chance for genetic variation in cross-pollination. The flowers avoid self-pollination, transfer of pollen grains to the stigma of the same flower. The flowers usually avoid. So that is the function of corolla. And third whorl is called as androecium, which contains male reproductive organs. So male reproductive tissue. So what is it? So that means they contain stamens. So the stamens have two parts. Mainly the lobe-like part is called anther and filament-like structure is called, the thread-like structure is called filament. So anther and filament put together known as stamen. So the number of stamens are specific, they are fixed in a particular plant. So the number of stamens may vary from 2 to infinite. Many number of stamens may be present, only 2 or 3 stamens are present, but in this flower, typical flower, we have 5 stamens, and we have taken longitudinal section and we represent 2 stamens. So stamens are the male reproductive units which produce pollen grains. How the pollen grains are produced? So we have already discussed that a special type of cell division takes place during the formation of gametes, which is called as meiosis or reduction division. So in the anther, there are certain cells are present which are called microspore mother cells or pollen mother cells. Microspore mother cells or pollen mother cells which are diploid in their condition. They undergo meiotic cell division and they produce haploid pollen grains. So the haploid pollen grains they are also called as microspores. So these microspores or pollen grains, they are produced in large number. They are haploid. They are very light in weight. So they are easily carried away either by the wind currents or by the insects or small birds, or in the case of water plants by water currents. So they are transferred from one plant to the other plant. So that is how the pollen grains are formed in the anther. And the next innermost whorl is called as gynoecium, which contains female reproductive parts. So what is gynoecium is also called as pistil. So here in gynoecium we can see a lobe-like part which is called as stigma, and a tube-like part which is called as style, and which ends with ovary. And ovary contains number of ovules. So stigma, style, ovary and ovules. Stigma is sticky in its nature, and so the pollen grains during the time of pollination, they get attached, stick to the stigma part of the flower. So the ovules in the ovary, they attach to the wall of the ovary by means of a soft cushion-like structure which is called as placenta. So this is the structure of gynoecium. And next we shall see the structure of ovule. So ovules are present in the ovary. So what is the structure of ovules? So ovules, in the center there is embryo sac or female gametophyte is present. So this female gametophyte contains 7 cells. So out of 7 cells, 3 are called antipodals. So during the formation of this female gametophyte, or which is also called as embryo sac, reduction division will take place and 8 haploid cells are formed. Out of 8 haploid cells, 3 are called antipodals. So here I have represented the chromosomal number which is haploid, which represents, so that is, it is represented by N. And here 2 synergids, they are also haploid, and 1 egg nucleus which is also haploid, and the remaining 2 cells fuse together to form secondary nucleus or polar nucleus. The 2 nuclei fuse together to form secondary nucleus or polar nucleus. So this is covered by 2 coverings. They are called as integuments. Outer one is called outer integument and inner one is called inner integument. And the integuments cover the embryo sac all over except leaving a small opening which is called as a micropyle. Okay, so the embryo sac is covered all over except the small opening, that is called micropyle. At the origin of the integuments, it is called as chalaja. And the stalk of the ovule is called as funicle. And this funicle attaches to the wall of the ovary by means of placenta, a cushion-like structure, soft cushion-like structure which is called as placenta. So if you see the ovule, you see antipodals, synergids, egg nucleus, all are in haploid condition. Only the secondary nucleus or polar nucleus is in diploid condition. Why? Because it is the resultant of fusion of 2 nuclei. So that is why it is diploid in its condition. So now after the complete development of the ovary, it is ready for fertilization. So how the process of fertilization takes place, that we shall say. First, pollination, that means the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the same flower. It is self-pollination. If they are transferred to the stigma of the other flower belonging to the same species, it is called cross-pollination. So either self-pollination or cross-pollination, the pollen grains attach to the stigma of the flower and they germinate. How do they germinate? By producing pollen tube. So only one pollen grain will succeed in the process of fertilization. So it produces a pollen tube, and this pollen tube passes through the style. While it is passing through the style, the nucleus in the pollen grain will divide into two nuclei, forming two male nuclei. And now this pollen grain enters into the ovule through this opening, which is called as a micropyle, and then it enters, and here the synergids, which are beside the egg nucleus, they help in the process of fertilization. So the synergids are also called as helper cells. And another one male nucleus fuses with the egg nucleus, and the second male nucleus fuses with the secondary nucleus or polar nucleus, resulting in the formation of, you can see, endosperm nucleus. So here two fertilizations are taking place. How? One male nucleus is fusing with the egg nucleus to form zygote, and another male nucleus fusing with the secondary nucleus or polar nucleus to form endosperm nucleus. That is why it is called as double fertilization. So double fertilization, you see, first male nucleus, which is haploid, fuses with the egg nucleus, which is also haploid, resulting in the formation of zygote, which is diploid in its condition. And the second male nucleus, which is haploid, fuses with the secondary nucleus, which is diploid, resulting in the formation of endosperm nucleus, which is now in a triploid condition, having 3 sets of chromosomes. Okay, so this is 3 sets of chromosomes, and this second endosperm nucleus is nutritive tissue. Let us see the function of all these things. So this is the process of fertilization that is taking place in the plants. Okay, so if you just let us recollect. Stalk of the flower is called pedicel. Upper part of the pedicel is swollen, which is called as thalamus, and the calyx is called as sepals. The function is protecting the inner parts of the flower, and corolla, which helps in the process of attracting the insects. There is a process of pollination by attracting the insects. And the third whorl is androecium, which contains male reproductive organs, anther and filament, and the number of stamens are fixed in a particular species. And fourth whorl is called stigma, and fourth whorl is called gynoecium, which contains stigma, style and ovary. Ovary contains ovules. So these are the parts of the flower. And now anther produces pollen grains. So in the anther, pollen mother cells or microspore mother cells are present. They undergo meiotic cell division and produce haploid pollen grains. And in the same way, in the gynoecium, what happens? The ovules, so they megaspore mother cell undergoes reduction division and produces 8 cells which are haploid. Among these 8 cells, 3 are antipodals, 2 are synergids, 1 is egg nucleus, and the remaining 2 nucleus fused together to form secondary nucleus. So now this embryo sac or female gametophyte is ready for fertilization. The pollen grains attached to the stigma of the flower during pollination, and they germinate. Only one pollen grain will succeed in the process of fertilization by producing pollen tube. This pollen tube passes through the style, and meanwhile the nucleus of the pollen grain divides, forming 2 male nuclei. And the pollen tube enters into the ovule, and synergids help in the process of fertilization. So they are called as helper cells. And here, one male nucleus fuses with the egg nucleus to form zygote, and the second male nucleus fuses with the polar nucleus or secondary nucleus, which resulting in the formation of endosperm nucleus. So that is how the process of fertilization is over. Okay, have you understood? And now let us see what happens during the process of development after fertilization. What are the changes that are taking place after fertilization? That we shall see. So when the fertilization takes place, actually the important parts of the flower which were helping in the process of pollination and fertilization, they after they finish their function, they will wither off, dry off. So what happens? The stigma, style, they fall off, and calyx, corolla, they also dry and fall off, and stamens, their function is over, they also dry and fall off. So what is the important part of the flower after fertilization? Means ovary. So ovary is the important part of the flower after fertilization. Ovary develops into fruit, and ovules develop into seeds, and integuments develop into seed pods, and next one, the zygote will develop into embryo, and endosperm nucleus will develop into endosperm tissue. And this endosperm tissue is nutritive tissue. It will provide sufficient nutrients for growth and development of the embryo. That means embryo utilizes the nutrients which are present in the endosperm tissue, it grows. And after all these things, the seed will undergo some sort of resting period or sleeping period, which is called as seed dormancy. So then when the conditions are favorable, that means when the seeds come in contact with the nutrients and water and optimum temperature and everything is favorable, the seeds will germinate. So when the seeds germinate, enzymes are produced and phytohormones, they show their effect. So auxins, they mainly important for the phototropic movement of the stem and the geotropic movement of the root. So roots always grow towards the soil and the stem always grows towards the light. Phototropic movement is shown by the stem and the geotropic movement is shown by the root. So the first formed root is called as a radicle, and the first formed shoot is called plumule. So then the radicle will develop so many roots, and the root system is formed, and the plumule will develop different branches, leaves, etc. And now it becomes autotrophic. That means now it is able to synthesize its own food material by means of photosynthesis. It will no more dependent on the endosperm tissue. It has utilized what are all the nutrients that are present in the endosperm tissue. And when it becomes self-sustainable, when it becomes self-dependent, it is not depending on any other thing, it will start preparing its own food by photosynthesis. So in this way, the seed germinates and grows into a plant. So here what's happening, the chromosomal exchange, genetic exchange had taken place between the pollen grains and the egg nucleus. So that is why what happens, there is a genetic variation and there is always chance for the development of better generation. Variations are seen and nature will select the organism with good characters, beneficial characters, and it will eliminate the organism with non-beneficial or weak characters. That is why there is every chance for the formation of better generation. Generation after generation, better organisms are formed. That is the importance of sexual reproduction. So that is how the plants undergo. That means flowering plants we have taken into consideration, the flowering plants, and we have taken one example of a flowering plant which is bisexual, having both androecium and gynoecium. That is bisexual flowers. And unisexual flowers are those which contain either androecium or gynoecium. So we can take the example of bitter gourd, papaya, etc. And they contain either androecium or gynoecium. That means either male reproductive organs or female reproductive organs. One flower contains only one type of reproductive organs. So that is how the process of sexual reproduction takes place, where the flower plays an important role. Okay, hope you have understood. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay, thank you.